Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again, and today I'm going to be doing a hopefully relatively quick overview and review of Gates of Arkham, Omens of the Deep, and Omens of the Pharaoh, the three of the additional expansions to Elder Sign that really make a big difference. It kind of revolutionizes what's going on.
Oh man, I guess I can't be in this video.
Yeah, Crazy Craft hasn't played these before, but one day.
I guess I just have to make it a crying effect.
So, what's interesting about these, and why I did not include these in my previous review with Elder Sign and Unseen Forces, is these really change the game significantly, and they're all similar in how they do it. So, number one, the setting changes every time here. In the original Elder Sign and with Unseen Forces, the setting was a museum, and honestly I always forget that because there's nothing that really evokes that theme very much except for some of the flavor text on the cards, but not all of them even really get that across. But here it's a lot more obvious. In Gates of Arkham, you are going to be in the streets of Arkham, going to different locations in the city. Omens of the Deep, you're on the open ocean, dealing with all kinds of ocean problems. And then Omens of the Pharaoh, you're in the desert. You're in Cairo and Dashur and dealing with crazy stuff over there. So that's one thing. The adventures represent this because you get a whole new adventure deck or decks with each one of these that replaces the old adventure cards altogether. You don't play with them anymore. You also get Mythos decks that completely replace the Mythos deck from the original. So that's one, and there's also entry cards that completely replace the entry card of the original. So and they're more significantly different than what Unseen Forces added. Those 4 entry cards are a lot more unique here. So, and a lot more thematic for that matter. So that's one thing. Additionally, with these expansions, you do get more common items, more spells, more unique items, more investigators, more great old ones, and all that good stuff, which add a lot of interesting things. But it's these other things that we're showing here that actually really change the game a lot. So, I'll try to go over each one relatively briefly if I can. So, in Gates of Arkham, well, let me say this first. Before I go into each one, there's one thing that makes all of these somewhat unique, but they're similar amongst each other. The adventure cards are different in the way they work. So normally you deal out 6 adventure cards, and there would be all 6 of them face up. With these, you start with 3 face up and 3 face down, and from then on out, anytime that you ever complete one, whenever you replace it with one, it will also be face down. So you don't know what's on the other side, which makes it more of a mystery what you're doing. However, there are some clues. You'll know the location: Graveyard, Bank of Arkham, the woods. There's a lot of different locations that you can go to. Each location has the same effect here. So all the woods locations will have this effect. All Bank of Arkham locations will have this effect. And all graveyard cards will have this effect. And you'll also get a warning. Is it hard, medium, or if it was green, it would be easy. You'll have an idea of how difficult it will be. So in this particular case, if you go to the Bank of Arkham, you can fast forward the clock twice to take the bottom card of the Arkham Adventure deck as a trophy. So basically, you spend time in the bank, pull out some money, you get a trophy. Or if the graveyard's open, if one of these cards is out, then at midnight, each investigator must discard a monster trophy. Or if the woods is active, add a Doom token to the Doom track at midnight. So a lot of bad things can happen here, but there's also some good things. For example, let's say you went to the Historical Society, or let's say, yeah, if you went here, you could spend 4 trophies to gain a skill. So you spend money to gain an ability. So skill cards, which are in both Omens of the Deep and Gates of Arkham, give you permanent abilities that help you in some form or fashion. For example, each time you draw 1 or more unique items after setup, draw an additional unique item, choose 1 to discard and keep the others. Discard at any time to draw 1 unique item. So that's handy dandy. Then there's other ones like, once during your turn, you may re-roll 1 die showing an investigation result. Discard during any investigator's turn to return a monster to the monster cup. So skills give you a lot of really cool things that help you in a number of ways. So this would be nice to be able to spend some trophies to get a skill. You might have the docks. You may give 1 clue, unique item, common item, or trophy to another investigator. So if you meet up at the docks, you can trade items with each other. Not literally meet up, obviously. Just if someone goes here, they can do it. But thematically, that's the way I interpret it. Or you can go to the magic shop. You may spend 3 trophies to gain a spell. Very thematic for the most part in how these work. But then you go there, it's medium difficulty. Whenever you go there, you would flip it over. And then you'll see what you really have to face. And there's all kinds of different unique things that might happen. In this case, if you beat this rather challenging thing, you'll get some spells. If you're a member of the Silver Twilight Lodge, you'll gain another spell. So since we saw this, we'll go ahead and cover that little issue. You can get memberships in this expansion. You can become a Sheldon Gang member or a member of the Order of the Silver Twilight. You can only have one or the other. If you would get one and you already have the other, you must choose which one to keep. But those memberships are very powerful because it can help you sometimes even beat... let me see if I can come up with a quick example. Here's an interesting one since I'm just showing this. Hopefully it doesn't spoil too much. But if you beat this, look at all the time. You have to fast forward the clock. You have to fast forward it 3 times. Beat this, you have to fast forward the clock even more and more. And it's thematic, exhaustive research. You're spending a lot of time doing all this research, clues and lore, and you're spending all this time. So again, thematic, which I like. Now, for example, okay, here's a good example. Well, that's not. Oh, here's a good example. If you're a member of the Silver Twilight Lodge, as soon as you start this adventure, you can just consider this done. You don't have to even worry about it. You only have to worry about this. If you're not a member, then you still have to deal with this. So, and here again, if you're a member, if your rewards increase, you'll get a spell. So becoming a member of these gangs has the potential to be lucrative and helpful. Now, the other thing about Gates of Arkham that's significant is there's some event symbols that'll be on these adventure cards. If it has this symbol on it, then you'll have to resolve an event as soon as you start your resolution phase, trying to complete the tasks. So you might lose 1 stamina, and if you're a member of the Sheldon Gang, you lose 2 stamina instead. Or you might have gain 1 clue or draw 1 spell. So sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. So events can make things a little more chaotic. And then the other important thing to note about Gates of Arkham is the only one of the new expansions that gives you any new other world cards, which might seem a little surprising, but it's significant because this particular scenario really revolves around the other worlds and gates. So what happens is if a gate opens, and a lot of the Mythos cards will make gates open, you will... Let's say you had this adventure open, or even if it was one face down, you can have a gate appear. If a gate appears, you would put one of these here and say, oh, a blue gate has opened. The color doesn't matter. You just need to know that blue matches blue. Whenever a gate opens, you would put another world adventure out and put the corresponding colored gate on top of that other world adventure face down also. So you don't even know what it is. But the one thing you do know, you cannot go here until you have resolved whatever that is. So you could move there, flip it over, try to beat it. Once you've beaten it, then you can remove these gate tokens, and then you can actually resolve this adventure. But once you've done that, you have to put a seal marker on it, which means that a gate can never open there again. If you ever beat the adventure, of course, you'll be able to discard it. And the reason why this is important, 2 things. If you need to put a gate out and all the gates are already out, a monster appears instead. But if you need to put a gate out but there's too many seal markers or gates so that you can't put another one out, then you add a doom token to the doom track. So you want to resolve your gates, the other worlds that pop up, as quickly as possible so the gates don't fill up and seal markers don't fill up, because then you'll start having a lot of other cascading issues. The other important thing about Gates of Arkham is that you don't get a lot to do here in the entrance. You can spend 2 trophies to do one of the following. And then you move to an Arkham adventure. The good thing about this is you don't waste a turn doing this. You can just spend the 2 trophies, then you can move. You can flip a face down Arkham adventure face up. So let's say there was one of these bad ones that had a midnight effect. You can pay 2 trophies to remove the midnight effect without going there. You can reveal it and then decide if you want to go there. You can discard an Arkham adventure without a gate, a monster, or a locked die, or investigator, and replace it with a new face-down Arkham adventure. Or you can regain 1 stamina and 1 sanity. So a little bit of healing, or managing the cards, the adventures that are out there. So I would consider Gates of Arkham the hardest of the bunch. The gates constantly coming out is tough, and there's a lot of tough adventures in here, and you can't buy items with trophies, which is an issue. It makes it to where it's a lot harder to get a lot of items that you need to be successful. But it is very thematic in the way it works and the locations. So then you move over to Omens of the Deep. Now at this point, a lot of what I've said applies here too. You have these adventures like this. Now these top ones with Cthulhu are special story adventures. Whenever you're in Stage 1, you're dealing with the Stage 1 deck. And the Stage 1 deck means you'll be going through these special adventures, and the same goes for stage 2. You'll have these special story adventures that you can go through, and you kind of want to because it helps you considerably to do so. But whenever you're in stage 1, it's because you're on this boat, the Ultima Thule. Whenever you're on this boat, you have a lot of cool stuff you can do. You can spend 5 trophies to get an ally, a skill, or advance the Omen, which is here. You have this token on this Dark Waters track. This token, as it moves backwards, if it gets all the way back here, you'll be adding these Deepwind Legion monsters. If you get all the way here, you can go ahead and move to the second stage. But that's something that you have to decide, because basically the second stage adventures have the elder signs that you need to win, and I think maybe even that's how you get to the other worlds. Here, not so much of that, if any. So here, it's more about getting items and doing things that are maybe a little bit easier. Here, that's where the challenge picks up, but you need to do it at some point, because the longer you take, the more time the Great Old One has time to get powerful and get ready to beat you. But the Ultima Thule has all these different things. You can spend trophies to get unique items, spells, common items, discard the top card of the adventure deck, because, again, you'll be able to see, since these come out face down, if there's something nasty on the deck, you get to see the top card. If you know it's a midnight effect that you don't want, you can just say, I'll spend a trophy to get rid of the top card. That way it doesn't come out and ruin our day. But if you ever got to the point where either by this Omen token moving back too many times and making these pop out, or there's Mythos cards, which there's stage 1 and stage 2, which correspond here. If you're in stage 1, you use stage 1 cards. If you're in stage 2, you use stage 2 Mythos cards. Those can actually cause more Deepwind Legions to pop out. If 4 of them are ever out at one time, you flip this over to the wreckage of the Ultima Thule, and suddenly you don't have nearly as much that you can do with your trophies, which you don't want that to happen. You want to try to keep that from happening as long as possible to keep your options open. But that being said, the other interesting thing about this, of course, these Legion tokens will hurt you here, but you also get these task tokens. These tasks, they represent challenges that you have to overcome, and each one of these has some text on the back, and you can spend 5 trophies to get a reward. So you are actually kind of happy whenever these pop up, because it gives you something to look forward to, some potential benefit, but they can also be very challenging to overcome. Now, there's also these interesting little tokens here. These broken, I can't remember what they call them, but I will find out in a second here, because once you get to stage 2, you don't worry about the deep waters anymore. You get to stage 2 because you've either gone all the way here and chosen to move on, and there might be another way that triggers it, but you'll flip this over. Oh yeah, these are the broken amulet pieces. So for each one of these that you've claimed, you'll cover up the corresponding colored slot. You'll start off with one of these, but you could also lose some due to some adventure penalties, and you can gain some due to some adventure rewards. If you do not get, let's say right now you covered up the red, that means the red die will not be locked, but yellow and green will be locked. So if you get to stage 2 and you've got this situation, that is a bummer. However, you can still, if the Omen token would retreat, a monster appears instead. If the Omen token would advance, remove a Deepwind Legion on any adventure from the game instead. So the Omen token, quote-unquote, can still move. It's just that it's not really moving. You're just getting these effects. But you really want to try to cover up as much of this as possible by having these tokens. And there are different ways to get these tokens, but if you get to stage 2 and you've got a green die locked, it's going to stay locked forever, and that is horrible. So you really don't want that to happen. But this gives you something to worry about and focus on that adds a little more interesting theme to the game. And you get more skill cards. And apart from that, that's pretty much what this offers. Let's go ahead and move over to Elder Sign Opens of the Pharaoh. Here, once again, you have a unique entrance. This entrance gives you a lot of different things that you can do. And again, similar to the Omens of the Deep, there's a second side that has not quite as much that you can do, but in this case you can continuously go back and forth. If you decide, you can always advance the clock an additional time to flip this card, so you can go back to Cairo, or you can go back to Dashur, because Dashur, you have to go here in order to move on to the stage 2 adventure deck, which again is where the elder signs are. So you can stay in Cairo, spend your trophies, and have easier tasks, but eventually you've got to try to stay over here in phase 2 so that you can get the elder signs so that you can win. Now, you also get this expedition board with some expedition tokens right here. Basically, you can earn expedition tokens as rewards on some of the cards, and once you get one, you put it on any one of these that you want, and you get some awesome bonus. Like in this case, at midnight, one investigator regains 1 sanity. Discard this token when the Ancient One awakens. So with this, or with this for healing 1 stamina, every time midnight strikes, you get a little healing. That's great. Or you can put one here. You may add the yellow die for free when resolving a Dark Pharaoh special adventure, which would be one of these. A few different effects can make these Dark Pharaoh adventures come out, and when they do, you need to wipe them out quickly, because at midnight, add 1 Doom token to the Doom track. Every one of them has this effect. So whenever these happen, you need to try to beat them quickly, but usually they're not so easy and they've got problems. So for example, red die is locked and not super simple. They're not just horribly difficult, but you need to get rid of them if you can, and they don't count as trophies. So that's kind of a bummer. But So this makes sure you can always have the yellow die when you deal with them, and you can pause it if you want to read the rest. But there's many different things that expedition tokens can give you to help you out on your quest. Of course, you have special mythos cards, and the special here, unlike here where it's staged, it matches what stage you're in. Here, you just always pull from the same one, and there's some unique things here. They give you a special option where if there's a blue background with these tentacles, then you can make it even harder that you add a Doom token in addition to whatever else. But the cool part is, in both Omens of the Deep and Omens of the Pharaoh, you choose what happens here. It's not like the original or even Gates of Arkham where you do the top and then this is a lingering effect. In these you choose. Each investigator with a relic gains 1 clue, then 2 monsters appear, or add 1 Doom token to the Doom track. So the option here, I like the fact that you get to choose what happens, because you can avoid some really nasty things, but sometimes they're both nasty and you just have to deal with it. Then, the relic cards is the other unique thing that you get in this case. The relic cards basically make it to where there's some special text on some of them, but for the most part what you're getting is these dice with these reroll symbols. What that means is, first of all, let's just say you had one with yellow and red. I don't know if there is one that has both, just that, but let's say you just did this. You could play this and immediately get the red die added as if you played a unique item or something that had a red die. But if you had already added the red die to your pool and you've used it not by placing it on a task, but you've gotten rid of it, you've discarded it because you failed a task, then you can do this to get it back in. So you can actually refresh dice that you had lost, and that goes for green dice too. So you could, let's say you'd already lost 2 green dice because you failed 2 times to complete a task. Bam! You play this, and you're back in the game with those 2 dice back available to use. So relics are very powerful because even if you've been failing and losing dice, you can get them back. Relics are awesome. So, and there is a way that this expansion allows you. You can use the exhibit as an option if you want to be able to use the relics in other modes. So you could have relics in Omens of the Deep, Gates of Arkham, or in the original, but you just have to use this, which adds some extra challenge in addition to giving you the option to get these powerful relic cards. So basically, that's it. That's what you get in these expansions. Hopefully that pretty much covered everything. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. But I'm just quickly going to say that I give every one of these a 9 because suddenly the theme comes through so much more. There's a lot more intrigue because you have these locations. Whenever you're here, you go to the Citadel and you may spend 10 trophies to become devoured to gain a broken amulet token. So you can sacrifice yourself for 10 trophies in order to get one of these tokens to cover up one of those slots so you're not missing out on a die, which is huge. Or you go to the Corpse City at midnight. Each investigator loses 1 sanity unless 1 investigator discards 1 clue. All these interesting locations that have these consistent things, because again, like in this, Alien Shores always has the same thing. You may flip 1 face down adventure face up. So the fact that the locations have consistent bonuses is awesome, and the fact that you get to experience this idea of, in this case, going through these different locations. Let's go to the hospital. You can spend 2 trophies to fully regain your stamina. That makes sense. You can heal yourself. The thematic, enhancement is awesome, and just the uniqueness of what's going on. Here you're trying to deal with these gates, the other worlds coming out and trying to close them as quickly as possible, and joining memberships to hopefully gain some benefits. here. You're trying to push through, keep the boat from sinking because if you have 4 or more of these pop out, these Legion markers, then suddenly they sink the ship. So you're trying to protect the boat so you don't have any problems. You're also trying to find these broken amulet tokens to keep yourself from having real problems whenever you get to stage 2. And then over here, you're going through the expedition. You're trying to get as much as you can in Cairo before going to Dashur, where you really get to the stuff that you need, but it gets harder. And trying to stop these Dark Pharaoh adventures from really holding you back, and going on the expeditions to be able to actually get permanent benefits or semi-permanent. Some of them are not permanent, but the point is, all these cool things. So easy, all of them are a 9 because I like the way each one really pulls out theme and changes the game in unique ways. Gates of Arkham, in my opinion, is the hardest, but these two are a little harder than the original, but they're not as hard as Gates of Arkham. Gates of Arkham is really tough. But again, that's it. This is, in my opinion, what really brings Elder Sign into the forefront as being truly awesome. Really glad I have these. And if you have any questions, let me know. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. And thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.